proceed?
Yep.
Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
My name is Sam Williams.
Ms. Williams, what do you do for a living?
I'm a mechanical engineer and I specialize in kind of analyzing airplane accidents, airplane accident reconstruction.
And how are you involved in today's case?
I investigated the accident that Colin was in.
Now, before we get into the specifics of that investigation, it's important that the members of the jury get a chance to hear about your background. Tell us, what's your educational background?
Well, after I graduated from high school, I went to college at Texas Tech and I got a degree in animal husbandry with a minor in mechanical engineering. And then I obtained a master's degree in mechanical engineering from Rice University. And after I graduated, I went to a private consulting firm and I worked there designing highways, bridges, and airport runways. And I worked there for 10 years.
And where are you currently employed?
I currently work with a private accident reconstruction consulting practice.
You said an accident investigation practice. What sorts of accidents do you typically investigate?
Aircraft accidents.
And have you testified in court before about those accidents?
Yes, probably 60 times as an expert.
You said you investigated the crash that took place at South Fork Ranch. Without going into any specifics, were you able to reach a conclusion as to the cause of that crash?
Yes, it is my opinion that T-Bone Thompson, the owner of the ranch, had a duty to properly maintain the runway lights on his private runway if he was going to have a pilot assisted lighting system installed on that runway, and his failure to maintain it was irresponsible.
Now, in reaching that conclusion, did you have sufficient information to rely upon?
Yes.
And is that conclusion based on reliable principles and methods?
Yes, it is.
And is it drawn to the degree of certainty that's used in your field?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to qualify Ms. Williams as an expert in the field of mechanical engineering and accident investigation.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, so admitted.
Now, Ms. Williams, you told us that you concluded that Mr. Thompson's failure to maintain his runway led to the crash. Tell us, did you investigate that runway?
Yes, I did. I went there myself and investigated it.
Your Honor, I'm now approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 6. May I approach the witness?
Yep.
Ms. Williams, can you tell the members of the jury what I just handed you?
This is a picture of the runway when its lights are on.
Does that photograph fairly and accurately represent what that runway looks like?
Yes, it does.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to enter Plaintiff's Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, you say exhibit 6?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so admitted.
Now, Ms. Williams, if you could just turn to the jury and hold up that photograph and explain to them, what is this lighting system you were referring to?
So this lighting system is basically, it's called a PAL system, and it's where the pilot can, it's pilot automated, so the pilot can turn the lights on from the plane before they land.
Now, how does a pilot activate those lights?
The pilot would simply click on the microphone a designated amount of times, and the lights would theoretically turn on.
Now, you said you investigated this runway. What role do the lights play on the runway at South Fork Range?
Well, the lights allow a pilot to land in the dark and at nighttime, as this accident was.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Now, you said those lights weren't working. What did you determine to be the cause of that malfunction?
The radio receiver that allows the clicks from the pilot's plane to be transferred to the lighting system wasn't working.
You said that radio receiver wasn't working. Who's responsible for maintaining a system like this?
Mr. Thompson is responsible for that.
Your Honor, I'm approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 8. May I approach the witness?
Yep.
Ms. Williams, can you tell the members of the jury what I just handed you?
This is the FAA advisory circular that was given to Mr. Thompson.
Is that a true and accurate copy of that circular?
Yes, it is.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to enter Plaintiff's Exhibit 8 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, so admitted.
You said that Mr. Thompson received that circular. What role did that play in your investigation?
Well, this allowed me to conclude that Mr. Thompson had basically received money from the federal government to
that circular tell a person like Mr. Thompson about maintenance and repair of runway like this?
It would tell Mr. Thompson that he is legally required to maintain and repair this lighting system.
And specifically, if you wouldn't mind, Ms. Williams, reading out the short paragraph under heading Maintenance and Repair, I believe it's 3.3.2.
The operator of the airport shall maintain the lighting facility consistent with the practices of reasonably prudent airport facility operators. If the lighting system fails to perform as designed, the operator shall undertake all necessary repairs to ensure that the system performs in accordance with its design and with the requirements of this circular. Such repairs shall be completed within a reasonable time after the operator becomes aware of any deficiency in system performance.
Now, that was a lot of very technical language, Ms. Williams, but who is the operator of the airport on South Fork Ranch?
Mr. Thompson is the operator.
And based on your investigation, what, if any, information did Mr. Thompson have about the lighting system not working?
Well, Mr. Thompson knew that his lighting system was not working 8 days before the accident occurred, and he did not take measures that were needed to fix it.
Here, I'm approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 12. May I approach the witness?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams, can you tell the members of the jury what I just handed you?
This is an email that Mr. Thomas Thompson sent to his ranch manager on August 10th.
Is that a true and accurate copy of that email?
Yes, it is.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, at this time the plaintiff moves to enter Plaintiff's Exhibit 12 into evidence.
Need any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, submitted.
You said that Mr. Thompson, based on your investigation, knew these lights weren't working.
Yes.
What role did that email play?
The email proves that Mr. Thompson found out that the lights were not working and that he only told his ranch manager who would not have been able to fix them in the necessary way.
Specifically, what does that email say about the lighting system?
Mr. Thompson says, they told me that the runway lights wouldn't come on when they did the click thing. So it basically says that the runway lights were not working.
And when was that email sent?
It was sent on Saturday, August 10th at 9:55 p.m.
Now, what, if any, information in that email orders the recipient to fix the lights?
There is no information in this email that orders the recipient to fix the lights.
Now, you said that it was Mr. Thompson's responsibility to maintain this system and that the lights were broken. What could have been done?
Well, Mr. Thompson should have notified either air traffic control or the pilot, the FAA. He should have taken measures himself to fix the lights or call someone who would have been able to fix them.
And based on your investigation and your training in this field, how long would it have taken to fix this lighting system?
A reasonable owner of this system would have been able to fix it sooner than 10 days after it had been broken.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time. I would ask you to approach and retrieve the exhibits that were entered and publish them to the members of the jury.
Yeah. Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to set up the courtroom?
Yep.
I was gonna keep this, so I figured you had to do something. Can you see that, Ms. Williams?
Yes, ma'am, okay.
So,
Your Honor, I would just ask for permission to relocate myself so I can see the
Sure.
transcript.
Ms. Williams, you made some conclusions about Mr. Thompson, right?
Yes, I did.
And about him fixing the airstrip that he had on his land?
Yes, I did. I concluded that he had the responsibility to fix it and that he did not.
But you would agree with me that this was a big airstrip, right?
Yes.
but it takes trained people to fix the runway, right?
Right, and he did not call any.
Well, or Miss Williams, if you look at those regulations, Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what's already been entered as Exhibit 8.
Yep.
If you take a look at these regulations, Miss Williams, it only says that Mr. Thompson has to act as a reasonable person would in fixing the runway, right?
Right, and I think that a reasonable person would call someone who could fix the runway.
But it doesn't impose a strict standard on Mr. Thompson, right?
I think it does. This is a federal document. This is a document that came from his deal with the federal government to build this airstrip.
But specifically, Ms. Williams, what I'm asking you is about what it means to be reasonable. It doesn't say that he needs to fix it within a month, right?
It doesn't specify an amount of time, but I think that anyone who owns an airstrip knows that planes are always flying, so.
But the answer to my question is yes, right? There's no specific time in those regulations that Mr. Thompson would have had to fix the runway by, right?
No, there's no specific time.
It doesn't say anywhere on there either that he has to call the FAA, does it?
No, it doesn't require that he calls the FAA, but a reasonable person, as you're asserting, would probably call the FAA.
But again, that's a yes to my question, that those regulations don't say that he has to, right?
No, it doesn't specifically say that he would have to.
And you think that Mr. Fortenberry was reasonable, right?
I do. I think that it was reasonable that he wanted to land his plane instead of crash.
You think that he was an experienced pilot, right?
Yes, I
And a seasoned pilot.
Yes, I do think that.
And it's important for all pilots to check the weather, right?
Yes, which he did.
But the weather report can tell us wind speed, right?
Yes.
And wind speed is something important that pilots have to factor into their calculations, right?
Yes, that's true.
Because if an aircraft is flying through a headwind, it would slow them down, right?
Right.
And a tailwind would speed them up, right?
Right.
So wind affects the amount of fuel that an aircraft needs, right?
Yes, that's true.
So because of this, it's important to check the weather, right?
Yes, which he did check.
Well, most experienced pilots check the NOAA report, right?
Yes.
That's the most accurate weather report to tell us wind speed, right?
Yes, however, it does not, nothing specifies what weather report you must check.
But you would agree with me that the local weather doesn't tell us what the wind is like thousands of feet in the air, does it?
I would agree with that, but I would say that he did check the weather and he did know what it should have been like. So.
He did know what it should have been like? So Mr. Fortenberry did know what the wind would be like thousands of feet in the air from checking the local weather?
I
Is that what
thought
you're telling me?
he did the best that he could in that circumstance.
Well, he didn't do the best that he could because there was an even more accurate weather report than the local weather, right?
If Mr. Fortenberry is a seasoned pilot, as I believe that he is, I think that he checked the weather and he believes that that was what the weather was.
So that's a yes to my question. He did not check the most accurate weather report that would have had the information that he needed to know, right?
Nothing legally requires him to check the NOAA report.
But the local weather didn't tell him the information he needed, did it?
No, but nothing legally requires him to check the NOAA report.
But even if he did check it, there's no evidence that he used it, right?
Right.
So instead, like I said, he only checked the local weather for Dallas, right?
Yes, which is where he was going.
But it didn't account for the 480 miles that he was flying before he got to Dallas, right?
Right.
You have reviewed the fuel regulations put in place by the FAA, right?
Yes.
The regulations that pilots are required to follow before they fly, right?
That's correct.
I'm approaching opposing counsel.
Does it not say what number? I think that's an 8.
I'm approaching opposing counsel with Exhibit 7. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yep.
I just handed you the fuel regulations that we just talked about, right?
Yes.
Did you use these in coming to your conclusions, right?
Yes, I did.
Because those would have been the regulations that covered Mr. Fortenberry before he took off, right?
Right.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction information of the regulations as you review them?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense offers Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Alright, so admitted.
So, as you can see in the requirements, a pilot must have enough fuel to travel from point A to point B, right?
Right.
But then the regulations also require that a pilot must have enough fuel to travel an additional 45 minutes, right?
Objection, Your Honor. The attorney is testifying by writing things on this board prior to having the witness confirm them.
She's just leading the witness's cross-examination, so overruled.
To answer, or to ask my question again, Ms. Williams, the regulations also require that in addition to fueling for the distance needed to complete their journey, they have to have an additional 45 minutes worth of fuel in their tank, right?
Right.
And this amount of fuel is required before a pilot even takes off, right?
Right.
Mr. Fortenberry's flight was 480 miles, right?
That's correct.
Now, for my next questions, I just want you to assume that there's no wind, okay? That Mr. Fortenberry was flying through perfect conditions with no wind in sight, all right?
Okay.
So, based on the speed of the Piper Cygnet, that was Mr. Fortenberry's plane, right?
Yes, it was.
Based on the speed of the Piper Cygnet, this distance, 480 miles, would have taken Mr. Fortenberry 4 hours, right?
That's correct.
Because the cruising speed of the aircraft was 120 miles, was it not?
It was.
So, Mr. Fortenberry would have burned 40 gallons of gas, right?
That's correct.
So Mr. Fortenberry would have needed 40 gallons of gas with no winds factored into his flight, right?
Right.
But as you just stated, the regulations require him to have another 45 minutes worth of gas in his tank, right?
Right.
So you agree with me that an additional 45 minutes worth of gas in Mr. Fortenberry's plane for his 4-hour trip would have been an additional 7.5 gallons, right, of gas.
That's correct.
So even before he took off, if he was flying with no winds, Mr. Fortenberry would have needed 47.5 gallons in his tank, right?
Right.
With no wind. And isn't it true, Miss Williams, that the Piper Cygnet only has a usable fuel capacity of 45 gallons, right?
Yes, that's true.
So, but you just told me that Mr. Fortenberry needed 47.5 gallons to comply with those regulations, right?
That's true.
So if his plane only held 45 gallons of gas, he would have never been compliant with those regulations, right?
Yes, that's true.
So even before he took off and flew 1 mile, he was never going to make it, was he?
He wasn't, but he should have been able to land on a safe landing strip.
But he was not compliant with those regulations. He was not compliant with those regulations before he even took off, right?
No, but I don't think that Mr. Thompson was compliant with his regulations either.
So that's a yes to my question, right? That Mr. Fortenberry was not compliant with the regulations before he even flew 1 mile, right?
Yes, that's true.
Nothing further, Your Honor. I ask that this may be preserved as an exhibit.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor, we would just ask the court's brief indulgence while we set up the demonstrative.
Alright,
That's my worst fear. Realize I'm like shaking. Doing math on a chalkboard in front of a room full of people. Oh my God.
Luckily, you do got dry erase marks.
you made it alright.
Oh, you did perfectly. Those were exactly right, like, those were the calculations. I don't know math either, so I think that was good.
Hey, high five. You did it.
And then I need cupcakes.
Now, Ms. Williams, Ms. Kluska just asked you a lot of questions about a situation where there would be no wind.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you about a situation where Zeke Fortenberry would have had a tailwind. What's the difference between a headwind and a tailwind?
Well, a headwind would slow a plane down and a tailwind would speed a plane up. So, given that there was a tailwind, the plane would have gone faster and used less fuel.
Well, let's talk about that. If there was a headwind or a tailwind of 10 miles per hour, how many gallons of fuel would it have taken Zeke Fortenberry to reach his destination?
One moment, please. I do not remember.
Your Honor, approaching opposing counsel with what has been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 11. May I approach the witness?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams, can you tell the members of the jury what I just handed you?
This is the local weather report from Dallas on August 18th, 2013.
Now, on that, is that a fair and accurate copy of that weather report?
Yes, it is.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, the plaintiff now moves to enter Plaintiff's Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, submitted.
What role did that weather report play in your investigation?
Well, this told the pilot that there were winds going north-northeast at 10 miles per hour at the location where he was supposed to land.
You said it told the pilot. Who was the pilot?
The pilot was Zeke Fortenberry.
You said those winds were 10 miles per hour north-northeast. Is that a headwind or a tailwind?
Tailwind.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right.
I would ask you to approach and retrieve the exhibits.
Yep.
And at this time, tender them to the clerk's bench.
Sure. All right, any other witnesses for the plaintiff?
At this time, the plaintiff rests.
All right, any motions from the defense before we get started on your case?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense moves for a judgment as a matter of law at this time because the plaintiff has not put forth sufficient evidence that a reasonable jury could use to find Mr. Thompson negligent, Your Honor. We've heard that, as we are talking about comparative negligence today, we've heard that from the plaintiff's expert witness that Mr. Fortenberry was not in compliant with the regulations he was supposed to follow, and because of this, he ran out of gas. Therefore, Your Honor, there is not sufficient evidence that Mr. Thompson could be liable.
All right, any response?
Yes, Your Honor, we have proved that there was a duty on Mr. Thompson and that he did in fact breach that duty by not fixing his PIL system within a reasonable amount of time. Additionally, with our own expert, we did prove that if Mr. Fortenberry had had the weather that he saw the weather report, he would have complied with the FAA.
All right, denied, so we can